I want to welcome you all here to the American Gods panel, and I want to bring out the wonderful people that are going to be talking to you. First of all, he is the creative mind behind my favorite, Pushing Daisies, and other greats, yes, and other greats like Hannibal and Heroes. Please welcome executive producer, writer, and co-showrunner, Bryan Fuller. Bryan. Hi, Bryan. Hello. I love his socks. My next guest has amazed us with shows like The River, Heroes, and Kings, and a little film about Wolverine called Logan. He wrote that. Please welcome writer, executive producer, and co-showrunner Michael Green. Hi, Michael. And you've seen this Golden Globe-winning actor most recently in John Wick 2, but he's also shined in Deadwood. Meet your favorite day of the week, Mr. Wednesday, Ian McShane. He's so handsome. He's handsome. Hi, Ian McShane. Oh, you give me some sugar? Oh, shucks, I got some sugar. I got sugar. Okay, guys, first of all, I want to make sure you guys know that American Gods premieres April 30th at 9 p.m. on STARZ. So if you don't have that written down or somewhere in your Twitters or something, get it down because it's important. And also, you guys may already know this, but for those who don't, who are watching at home or on YouTube, this is a TV show that's adapted from the great book by Neil Gaiman, American Gods. Yes, yes. It has been translated into over 30 languages. It's earned numerous awards, so this is like no small feat for you guys to create this show. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hi. Okay, so tell me this. I'm going to go to my showrunners first and executive producers. What was it like adapting this piece of work?
It was fun.
Yeah, I think for us, both being fans of the novel, that it was really about us settling in and doing some fan fiction.
In what way? Explain that.
When you're inspired by something that does so much of the work for you, you get to glide on that wind for quite some time before you have to Barney Rubble it to get it going again.
And I heard Neil was really open to that too. He was okay with you guys taking what he had and kind of jumping off from that. Is that true, Michael?
Yeah, he was very gracious, almost too gracious. I mean, for about the last 2.5 years of doing this, there was a lot of meeting people who are rabid fans who have words from the book tattooed on their bodies, and they look at you with a mix of hope and you're not going to fuck it up, are you? And, we didn't want to. We took that very, very seriously. And Neil, day one, it was just, this is your show.
Wow.
There are things he wanted us to adhere to that we wanted to too. We never really battled or anything. And he was excited to see what happened off stage from his novel.
So you mentioned there were some things that he was like, this has to be there. Do you remember a couple of those things that he was really adamant about?
Oh, a character named Shadow. Yeah.
Please.
He was adamant about the ethnicity and the culture of all the characters and the actors representing the different gods. He only wanted...
I'm Norwegian.
Yeah.
Well, yes, that's
to an
important.
extent. Yeah. There was only one time where he said, if you do that, I'll throw myself in front of a bus. And so we didn't.
Well, we got to know what that is. I don't.
I
got to know what that is.
If Audrey's blowjob threat had gone further in the graveyard. And Neil was like, please don't do that. And we're like,
yeah.
Okay.
I'm upset that I asked the question at this point. I feel like I should have let that one go. Okay. Ian, what drew you to the project?
First, I got to say that I didn't see this until like a week ago in Austin. And I don't know about you guys, but I mean, I was kind of open-mouthed watching it.
Yeah.
In the best kind of way. You know, it's really nice to have done something. I've worked with Michael before, but when you see it with all the bells and whistles, and this is a show you have to see. You know, I'm one of those actors anyway that huddles behind, you know, Video Village. I never do that. I think they should ban fucking actors from being a Video Village. You know, they look at themselves, that's the main thing. But it's like watching this, it needed all those extra stuff on it. And I was just blown away. I don't think there's anything like it. So from the beginning, when I knew nothing about the book, but I worked with Michael, and I read the book, and I think I quoted by saying it now, it's like a blueprint for a TV show. I mean, I read the book, and it's like, because Gaiman veers off. I mean, I've done his material before, but one of his other guys is as a children's author with Coraline. But this was just like, you know, I thought when I read it, it cried out for what you guys have done to it so far. Just be careful with the rest of it, okay?
yes.
I was blessed to moderate the panel that you guys had at Comic-Con, and it was right at the beginning, and they didn't even have anything to show me. You know, I knew the book, but I wanted to read some scripts, and so I read like 7 or 8 scripts.
Yeah,
and
you're the first person to binge the show.
I binge read the show, and I was blown away by how beautifully it was written and how descriptively it was written and how you could actually see it come to life. But then to see it on screen, just, you guys, wasn't it just amazing, just a beautiful piece of work? So, yeah. I'm gonna stay with Ian for a minute. What's your favorite part about playing Mr. Wednesday? Because he's very verbal, very, yeah. What's your favorite?
Yeah, when they cast me, the speeches got longer.
Yeah. I heard you're
Well,
the
what-
go-to guy for long speeches. That's what I
Yeah, but one of the great things about having these two, and I went with Michael before, who's Mr. Double Negative, you know, in writing terms, where it makes it interesting sometimes, and Bryan is in a more fluid, different way. So I know sometimes how, you know, it's really, but they're both sides of the same coin. So what the two of them brought together, and with their imaginations, and you know, it'll be anyway. We'll slay them with this one, Michael. They should have got Kings, but they never did. But that's their problem. But I mean, but Mr. Wednesday, how can you not like him? I mean, they phoned me up. They just said, Michael Green. I said, oh, great, Michael, how is he? And they said, well, he's got this project. And he said, Chernobog. So I read it, and I read the script. I thought, what the fuck am I? No, I mean, Chernobog, which I love, but I thought, you instantly think, no, there's a better actor that can play this part. I know that physically.
Your actual quote was, but he leaves at the end of the episode.
Huh? No, I was very flattered,
one
but
that
I'm reading it. It was just funny. I've never done it. And you read something, I thought, this is really fucking interesting, you know? You read a script and I think, but not Chernobyl. Who's this Mr. Wednesday? And I went back and I said, Michael, I think it's a disgrace that you offered me this part of Chernobyl. It's terrible. I said, I think it's great, but it's not right, and whatever. I said, but I like that Mr. Wednesday guy, but whatever. Good luck with the project, and see you later. And then about a week later, I don't know, but
That was kind of
the scales dropped from your eyes.
Yeah.
Michael came back and said Ian doesn't want to play Chernobog, but he likes Wednesday, and we were both like, done. Let's do that.
We sent the email to Neil.
And Neil's response was, I love it. He's bastardy.
I love that. Since we're in front of so many amazing writers here today, I want to know what the writer's room is like on American Gods.
Oppressive, violent, tears are shed. It was actually a really great group of folks, and everybody coming to the book and the first few scripts, because we had 3 scripts written that everybody read, or 4 scripts written that everybody read when we started the writer's room. And it's always nice to get such a diverse group of people together from different backgrounds and to see where they attach to the characters and what odd specificities they bring, because writer's room are generally therapy sessions, and you get to know where everybody's broken and how that informs their work. And so it functions wonderfully in that way.
Yeah, we everyone who was in that room had to have some complicated relationship with religion.
Wow.
Whether it was in the past, in the present, in the future, or just you had to have an interest in it and you had to have a struggle with it, because that's ultimately what the series was going to be about. Wow. We were lucky enough that many people come to the book as fans, so we had a wonderful selection of people who are interested in working on it. And it's also an interesting time now. I mean, it's beyond the scope of perhaps this panel, but we're in a world where staffing works differently, where people will come to a show and then leave it before production, or they're in between other shows, and as opposed to, so it's more of a
because there's so many
agency.
options out there
There
now.
are options. The schedules are different. It's not the same birthing cycle, 2 months off, get back to it, network 22 episode thing. So it was
2 months off.
Oh my God, can you imagine?
So how do you guys decide who's going to do which episode? How do you break episodes and all that?
With the writer's room?
Yeah.
It was always about who had the most affinity. I mean, there was one writer who was like Easter. And from day one, Becca Bunstetter, she was a terrific writer, written all these wonderful plays, and a great pilot where we're just like, that was one of those, you read someone, you're like, if she shows up wearing pants, she's got the job, and she did. And from day one, she was a huge gravitation towards that character, towards what we could do with it, and several months of conversations, drafts later, you end up with our finale.
Love it. Love it. adapting something that someone else has already written, what is that like for people that also create their own shows? Is that scary? Is that familiar? What is the best way to go about it if you're a writer adapting someone else's work?
If you love the work, it's much easier than doing your own original material because you know the story already works. And you don't have that high level of anxiety with like, oh God, is this the right choice? Because somebody has already made the choice. It's just up to you not to screw it up.
May I say something
Please,
about?
Ian.
I've never been near a writer's room and have no intention of ever going near it. But and I'm sure
you're
they
not
say
like-
thank God. No, they say thank God. Yeah. But the thing is about the writing, and I'd just like to say something, is that on a project like this, which is obviously very dear and near to a lot of people's hearts, that one of the advantages of working, and you pointed this out, I think, when you were talking about how everything is variable now, Michael. It doesn't follow the old rules of a studio or whatever. The fact that on this, that you had the opportunity to see as it went along, because, you know, it's not perfect. No script is perfect. No performances are perfect. They keep going. They keep evolving. And one of the advantages we could was that, you know, they saw as things went along, so we went back and you rewrote and you changed scenes. And you changed areas, and that's a luxury which I think now was not afforded before. You know, when you're doing, who the hell wants to do 24 episodes a year, you know? But now when you can do this, and you're offered that opportunity, and you can work with, you know, the budgets are much more different now, that streams, the revenue streams, it's all changing drastically all over. And because there's a need for product, and this is a product that people will want to see. So the highest level. So it's been tuned at times, which is frustrating sometimes as an actor, but in the best way, because you have to reshoot. But when you see it up there and you go, oh yeah, I get the reason now. Because sometimes you don't get the reason when you're talking about this, because your vision is simply about how am I going to organize all these characters, whatever, and they're thinking on another level. So it's interesting when it comes together and then you see it and you go, oh, yeah, wow, that's what I said. When I saw it, I go, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
American Gods hits on a lot of very interesting and tough themes that actually parallel what we're dealing with in America. Sorry, I'm not going there. I want to, but I'm not going to do it. Immigration, race, gay rights. How do you thread the needle where you talk about things that matter without becoming too overly preachy as a writer?
I think in this instance, we just followed the example that Neil gave us with the book. The implicit issues, whether they are gender issues, sexuality issues, race issues, were all in the book, but they weren't treated with a heavy hand because it was always coming from a character standpoint as opposed to an issue standpoint. And we just followed that lesson and made it about character. So it wasn't so much about hitting somebody over the head with a political agenda.
Right. And your goal, though, I think we talked about this before, is to make it the type of show that is a jumping off point for people to have conversations at home. Am I correct?
About all sorts of things.
Yeah.
What do you believe in? Where do you put your faith? What is your tolerance level for other people? And one of the things that we're very excited about is seeing all faiths as equal as we go into this, and that was implicit in the book, and it also gave us a wonderful platform to treat all faiths equally.
What do you think is the underlying message of the show? If you had to pick one thing that you want people to take away from the show, or what do you think Neil had in mind with the book?
I think believe in something and start with yourself.
Oh. Nobody's writing that down. That's some good stuff, y'all. We didn't just had church. Y'all don't even know when church happens. Church just happened in here. That's amazing.
There are no characters in the book who continue to believe in nothing. Some start that way, but that's not a way to continue.
Right.
To continue believing in nothing yields your death. And
Or you suffer the frustration of the faithless. I think.
You know what I love about it, and I can't remember if this was implicitly said in a scene or in Neil's book, because it's just so universal, but the idea that we all believe in something and we all worship something. And it could be cameras, it could be Cheetos, it could, not Cheetos.
Just happened.
Nobody likes Cheetos. the food, but not in people form. Okay, moving on. We love the food. But yes, you can worship. You can find your way to worshiping anything. And what I love about this is that there's people that think they don't have faith, but they do have faith. It's just not in a technical deity. It's in maybe media. It's in technology.
It's passive faith. People are
Exactly.
still giving their time and attention to something else with as much fervor as people used to sacrifice their first fatted lamb of the year.
Yes.
They just don't intend it. And it was the image I came back with. I was flying one of those back and forth trips, and I saw someone drop their cell phone on the plane, and they were on their hands and knees under their seat for a good 6 minutes trying to find the damn thing. I'm like, how is that not worshiping their phone?
Yeah.
How is that? They're literally bowing to the iPhone.
That's true.
And, you know, we've all been there.
There are many powerful women in this universe. One of them's in here. Yetide's in here.
Yetide?
Yetide, stand up and say hello to everybody. She plays Bilquis. Hi, honey. Hi, sweetie pie. See, I told you I was going to shout you out. I told you.
We haven't met yet in the show.
Oh, shucks. Well, I don't know. She's
I have no
dangerous.
intention of going anywhere near you.
She's dangerous. So there's a lot of powerful women in this piece, and what I love is that they're equally as powerful as the male gods. Why was that important? Is that a part of the other thing you guys are trying to get across?
I think they're equally, if not more so, important because when you're talking about religions and worship and creationism, nothing gets more creative than what happens inside a woman's body. So it's hard to ignore that God source. And really for us, the shape of the season ultimately comes down to if you're going to war, you need a queen. And we had watched the finale, which is goes right to the heart of the links that men will go to take down a woman of power. And we were watching it in November, and it was very eye-opening. And we didn't know we meant so much because we wrote it in a progressive administration.
Yeah. Yeah, let that marinate, guys.
The whole room just went,
Yeah,
Trisad
listen, it got heavy in here. It's okay, we're together. Can you guys tell us a little bit about the gods that are featured in this amazing cast that you've assembled? Just a little tidbit about what we're going to see.
Well, to start, we should talk about Bilquis.
I believe we should, because she's
No,
right.
we should, because, yes, there's the scene. Everyone who's a fan of the book says, how are you going to do that? And the answer is, we did it.
They did.
But what I'm most excited for is for people to see where she goes, because that is a woman of very deep talent who takes small moments and makes them.
That was not a pun.
She takes
all
small
shot
moments.
practical, right? Yeah. No, and the arc is extraordinary, and can't wait to write for her more. I'm just excited for people to forget that, because what she's about to do is even more interesting. And I don't mean.
Yeah.
More of that. Yeah. So, question. So, who else?
Tell us some of the other guys.
Oh
in the
well, we
amazing
get
cast
to
you
meet
have.
Easter and our
Kristen
finale.
Chenoweth.
Kristen Chenoweth is Easter. We have Peter Stormare as Chernobog and Cloris Leachman as one of the Zeraria sisters.
Who Ian gets to have a love scene with.
Yes.
Cloris, yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody got excited about
Great.
that name.
She's great.
Yeah. Look at that smile. Yes.
Should we tell her for her 90th
Who
birthday?
doesn't want to kiss Cloris Leach?
No one in this room doesn't want to. That's a double negative. Wait a minute. Okay. You know what I mean. We all do.
Cloris Leachman turned 90 on the set of American Gods, and we went to her trailer with a birthday cake, and she said, "Fuck me, I'm 90." And she said, "Seriously, fuck me. Get all those crewmen, get them in a line outside my trailer, and get them in here
Line
to
them
fuck
up,
me."
bring them in.
Yeah. And then she had some cake.
Yep. She has some cake. You want to say a little bit about the fabulous Ricky who plays Shadow?
Wonderful Ricky Whittle, who auditioned 16 times.
45 times. 92. Yeah,
What?
Yeah. Each time it gets bigger. No, it's 16 is the number.
And
Glad you got him.
yeah.
Very good to work with. I mean, you know, it's like was easy from the start with me and Ricky, you know.
You're from the same town.
The same town, same football team. Yeah, good stuff.
Apparently in England, that's important. Just in case you ever work with a British actor, it happens a lot in television. make sure you're on the right football.
16 times.
16 times. So he
It's-
earned that. He jumped through lots of
So
hoops.
explain that to me. Like that is what 16 times with each of you, or is that going through the network? What is that?
16 times going through us, the network, the studio.
Casting directors directly, Skypes.
Yikes.
You wonder why we hate fucking producers and directors and the business?
And the thing about him is he's the Energizer Bunny. He attacks everything with charm, good cheer, endless energy, and you could see that every time. He wasn't someone who ever got frustrated or didn't want to. Like, I get to come back, great, and we would get to know him personally in those, as well as see him do his reads and enjoying them, and realize that's the person we want to watch go through this terrible ordeal of Shadow Moon.
Just wish he was good looking.
Yeah, there is that problem.
So hard to look at. I'm sorry. I just started thinking of Ricky and lost my train of thought. Emily Browning, the wonderful Laura.
Emily Browning was such our first meeting with her was lovely. And the more we talked to her about Laura, who is not the most likable of characters. And Emily was very excited to bring somebody to life that wasn't the heart and soul of a show, that was kind of a curse that she didn't want to bear anymore. And she felt so strongly that Laura needed to be a role model for young women to not give as a fuck about what people think of them and to do their own thing. And that manifested in all sorts of ways. Oddly, one of the issues that she brought to us was she didn't want Laura to shave her underarms because she felt like that was a thing that women do to please men. And so she said, do you mind if Laura doesn't shave her underarms? And we're like, of course not. And then during the sex scene with her and Ricky, you saw that Ricky does shave his underarms and Emily doesn't. So that was a fun surprise.
I love that. I'm going to turn it over to the wonderful writers to ask you questions in a second. But first, I wanted to ask myself, what is the best writing advice you've ever received when you were starting out? Like, what's the thing that you still go to every day? Like, this is how I need to do this. Or I need to stop doing this to be effective.
Write what you want to see.
It's good.
But you're the first member of the audience, and if you're writing something that you wouldn't watch, you have no business being there because you can't feel what the audience wants.
Right.
This isn't so much advice, but when in 6th grade I had the terrible English teacher who said, write what you know, I misunderstood her as write the sections you have down, skip the parts you don't, and then go ahead and come back, which just meant be writing all the time and never stop. And then someone explained it to me not much later, and I was like, well, that's stupid. Write what you want to know. Make yourself the writer who can write the thing you are passionate about, even if you have no business doing it today. That might mean you have to have a set of experiences, or you have to read 700 books, or maybe you have a natural affinity for it. But yeah, just keep at it and go back to the parts you don't have later, or skip them and you didn't need them in the first place.
Ian?
What's your worst piece of advice that you were given as a
Oh,
writer?
that's a good question.
Oh, God. Write what you know. I don't know. Worst piece of
Not every line has to be good. Just every scene needs just one good line, and the rest can
Yeah, that's
fly.
horrible advice.
Yeah.
Oh, I once heard, yes, no, you were in a room where this was said. Sometimes when I'm stuck on a scene, I just reverse all the dialogue and it ends up being better. And I just remember, then that's a bad scene.
Ian, before I go to the writers, what's the best advice you received as an actor?
The
best advice you've received as an actor.
I never have.
No advice ever? No?
Advice by who?
Anyone, like a teacher or anyone in a
Oh, no. Oh, I
director.
see. Oh, no. Oh, yeah. Oh, no.
Ian, we're doing a panel.
I've got some...
Ian, they're all here for you, Ian. Come on. Don't let them down.
Love you.
I just... No, I mean, I still don't know why I'm doing it. A teacher to me when I was 17 said, you're rather good at this. I said, well, I can't think of another fucking thing I want to do. I can't play football like my dad because he was far, I can't, you know. So I said, maybe I should go to, so I went to the Royal Academy, and apparently, you know, it's worked the thing.
Yeah, that deserves a clap, you
Royal
guys.
Academy loves you
Academy
too.
of Arts.
And, you know, then you learn all those wonderful things.
Okay. Well, I want to go to you guys.
You haven't asked me what wonderful things.
What wonderful things? Ian,
How to drink and meet
Ian.
girls. I mean, that's, yeah. Thank you.
That's about right. That's about right. Okay, I wanted to kind of break protocol and go to you guys earlier because I figure you guys have really amazing questions for these amazing guys. So, who has a question for these amazing guys? She does. Oh, right here. Oh, see, Bryan Fuller. He's so sweet, you guys. He's so sweet.
Wow, thank you. My new favorite show, so thank you very much. Can you talk a little bit about what it was like to film the hanging scene?
Good question. I was just holding the microphone. You have to answer.
We knew this was nothing to be taken lightly. I mean, we were going to be casting a dark-skinned man, and we were going to be hanging him, and that's combustible. And you can't be afraid to do something. I mean, and again, if we had time, we would show the beginning of the next episode, which goes even further into similar racial issues. And we knew we're two white guys writing about this and trying to capture it and trying to do it justice. And it's as well as you can, as respectfully as you can, as carefully as you can, and not be afraid. You have to make sure that the actors who are inhabiting it are comfortable and check your homework. We begin the next episode with Orlando Jones as Mr. Nancy on a slave ship talking to slaves. And it's you know, we had the idea, we wrote the idea, but it wasn't until we talked to the actor who was going to be saying these things to make sure we were okay. And it takes that give and take, and you have to create those moments and say, what does it take for you to feel okay with this? What have we done wrong? What have we done right? How can we do this better? How do we suck? Do we, you know, and not in the sense where it's permission, because everyone has permission to be interested in things or to of any subject. You know, it's the oh, sorry, that's not a good example. So just carefully, with respect, and knowing who's the one who has to do it.
That's a great answer. Next question. Hi, honey. She's right here.
That's too far for me to go.
My question is for Mr. McShane. One of the very first things I ever remember seeing on television was you on a Masterpiece Theater. I think you were playing Alexander the Great.
No, Disraeli.
No, it was an...
That's why I never take any fucking advice.
It's my favorite moment. It's my favorite
I love
moment
that.
just happened. My favorite moment just happened.
Oh,
She said no.
wonderful.
She
No,
said
no.
no, Mr. McShane. That's
was
not what it
like
was.
That's not what you did.
I was 7. So
I'm sure someone here has a phone,
might
they
have
can
been
look this up.
Disraeli.
Google it. What was his
Masterpiece
Settle a
Masterpiece
bet.
Theater? Who's the Googler? Google it. Oh no. So what's
Anyway,
your?
I just remembered you. My question is about you reading a script, and I know that like this material is incredible. What is it that draws you in, as if it's communicating to you, so that you can see how perhaps you would play it?
No, I never think about that. When I read the script like this, that these two guys wrote, it was like, I'll never forget, it's like reading Deadwood, you know? The first time I read that. No, really, yeah. I'm got to say that because that's another example of great American television writing. When it comes along, you read a script and you just look at it. It's like when I said to Michael, when it wasn't a part, you see. I'm thinking, no, but this is really interesting. So it's an interesting to draw you in as an actor when you're involved over a period of time, as we are in this. Yeah, it's the script and nothing else. It's absolutely what comes to you. And mostly it is when I'm reading that script, do I go somewhere else for an hour and a half? And if I don't, well, fuck it, you know. That's somebody there's as many fine actors out there who'll do it. But if it does take you somewhere else for that, and you finish and you go, wow, I really don't, you don't have to like it instantly, but it's just something about it that gets you that is somewhere else. And that's the point of doing television. You know, this is not like, it's not like anything I've seen. I don't know about you. You may have seen something on Bulgarian TV, which has escaped the networks of America. But I don't think anything's been quite like, in terms of the visual look, the animation, the starting, the starting, the sequence, the prologue, the epilogue, the kind of the hanging there, the standalone episodes. I mean, we're not all in every episode, which is kind of great. Gives you time to breathe and get to know other things. So it's a very ambitious undertaking. And it only got more interesting in the last few weeks, having seen it. I knew it would be good. The people involved, including David Slade, who directed the first 3 episodes. That was a hell of a job, directing it like a feature film, which we don't advise that again, because it's not. It's not easy to do. But the combination, you'd be good. But when you see it all up, then you go, wow, because that's, I come back to my original point that, cinema is the socialism of the arts, because everybody gets their bit. It really is. The actors, you can't. Without the sound effects, it wouldn't be half the thing. The sound, the music, the undercurrent score, the sound editing. That's why I'm always fascinated at the Oscars. Those guys who make movies like way. And this smells of that. This is like a hybrid. It's not TV. It goes somewhere else.
Yeah, I agree.
But that's kind of nice. Anyway, I hope I've answered half your question. And no, I'd love to play Alexander the Great. You don't happen to have a script on you, do you?
Next question. This gentleman up there with the black gun.
So the old gods are ancient and timeless, but the new gods were written 30 years ago. How did you approach the difference between, the internet in the intervening time?
Well, when the book was written, there was no Facebook, and we hadn't quite yet experienced this mass hemorrhage of personal privacy that we have as a result of social media. And so it felt like the opportunity for the new gods as people who know all your secrets because they're on your Tinder account, they're on your Grindr account, they know what you like, what you don't like. And there is something, as we've learned in the last year about email hacking and, whether it's politics or Sony, there's no privacy anymore. And that felt like a fascinating opportunity for the new gods, being fame or media or technology, to be more insidious than they were before we lost our privacy.
There's also the swagger that came with the people who create tech. Those people fancy themselves rock stars, are often treated as rock stars. When the book was written originally, it was marginalized. It was, the cliche of nerd in basement with grandmother making lunch. Like, that was something to be embarrassed about as a marginalized person who had to wear someone else's costume and dress like the Matrix. That was of a moment, but now it's aggressive. It's this is something, when you win big. And so our tech boy is very much cut from that cloth, and he changes his cloth every chance he gets because he's always chasing reinvention, which is the other thing. It's eating its own tail faster than the eye can see, which made it fun to dress him and fuck up his hair.
Next, I like your hair back there. But no, it's you. It's you. Yeah, I like your hair. That's how I pick, guys.
Thanks so much. And I got to see Logan finally last week, and holy shit, man. Wow.
Thanks.
Michael!
And that leads to the
Why did it take you so long?
I know, exactly. And that leads to the question, which is, so you walk in there and you say, no, I want to do a Western noir that happens to have superheroes in it. Or I want to, we're going to have a flaming bull with, eyes flaming, whatever. So can you talk a little bit about the place where creativity meets permission, maybe, is what I'm talking about? I'm going to go outside of what you want or what you expect, but you're gonna fucking love it.
Sure, and that goes right to the heart of American Gods, so I'm going to pivot it back to over here. But no, what it takes is that your studio, and in the case of television, your studio and your network, are on board with what you want to do from the get-go. A clear vision articulated calmly at an early stage will go far. In the case of Logan, James Mangold, from day one, sat down with the studio well before my involvement and said, these are the things that I value and I want to do. And it was his job to get them excited about it, and he did, so that when I came, it was just about helping him see that through. And writers who came after, same thing. On this, it was sitting down with our studio about who are right here, long-suffering, and here to back us at every turn. No, it was, you don't get a show like this without sitting down with them and saying, here's what we want, what we envision, and them saying, we can see that, we want to help you make that. And then you have to present that same vision to your network, here, STARZ, and to say, we want to do these potentially crazy things, regrettable things potentially, and to get them excited about it, so that when you go about doing it, you can then look to them as checks and as support for how do we make that, because they will have sets of experiences in production, in advertising, in marketing, in every stage of things that can help you do that right, or can sense when you might be doing it wrong. In that respect, if you do that right, you now have all that wind at your back and you're all going to the same place. Where shows will crash and burn is when the visions collide, when the showrunner has an idea and no one wants that idea. Then someone's getting fired.
Yes, Sarah, right here. Well, I'm just being respectful.
Just first off, thank you guys so much for doing this. My question, what I noticed, what really stood out watching this is you take a very dark, very sensitive material, and yet so much is broken up by humor. That's something that was big on Pushing Daisies too. You took death, and then all the deaths were funny in like a weird, strange way. How much of adding in the humor is in writing, or is it in scene work, or is it in editing? Like, where do you start to say, oh, okay, no, this may be too much. Where do we pare it back? Or no, we need more humor in these moments?
It's in all of those things, I think. It's in the writing, it's in the performances, it's in the editing, it's, because you have to get the timing right for those things to land. And you also have to be working with actors who understand humor and can take it to a funny place without undercutting the drama. And that was the alchemy of this experience, because when Michael and I first sat down and started talking about what the tone of this show is, we talked a lot about the Coen brothers and how there's an alchemy in the way they balance tone. They can go to very dark, violent places and then cut it with absurdist humor that's always authentic to what's happening. So as long as we're emotionally authentic and genuine, we can balance those things. It's when you lose emotional authenticity that the comedy changes, and we often talk about in this show that more wit than comedy, but we knew right from the get-go that we needed to do a tonal land grab with our Coming to Americas and the tone of the Vikings coming to America. We wanted it to be Python-esque in its violence. We wanted the severed arm to be flying through the air with the sword. We wanted the ridiculousness of these men torturing themselves to appease their god. So we definitely wanted people to be laughing at the show and laughing with the show. That was important, because otherwise we're just going to get into a cycle of, as Shadow Moon says, sucking our own dicks, and it's just not that interesting unless you're telling the audience we're having fun too.
Can I add to that a second?
Yes, you can.
Yeah, I think that, also it's important that when you're playing Mr. Wednesday, who's a god. Now, how do you play a god? I think the way you play a god is to play him as more naturally human than anybody else in the show, in terms of like big, because he's irrepressible, dauntless, and he finds humor in everything. And that would seem to be the way of, you know what I mean, undercutting. Otherwise, it's like, when all the special stuff comes and it's Odin, whatever, it's all in a different, but if it's that from the beginning, if you go, which I must say, when I've seen sometimes pictures of Mr. Wednesday drawn by people, and you go, fuck me, I wouldn't go near that guy, And the white suit with the beard and looking very like some idea of some kind of white, Norse god. No, it's very interesting, the question about how it comes through that, and then you find it in the playing. Because Ricky's got the most difficult part, too, because it all happens to him. Everything goes to him. He isn't the originator of anything. It all happens on top, so he's got to take it. So I think that rapport, as you say, with the humor of the Wednesday, who I'm sure at times Ricky wants to kill that guy, not the abuse, the sort of humor, but the way the alchemy, as you say, between the two of us, I always found from the start was really, really good. And Ricky, really and it comes across when I saw it. But the humor, you're right, yeah, because of course humor is to it's the most difficult thing to play, that level. Okay, thank you.
Right there. Lady in the second row, please. Bryan was coming. Bryan was like,
I know.
You better move faster.
Thank you. Your shows are so unique. They stand out. They have a very clear voice. It's no surprise that your style is so fly right now. But so my question is, and this is for both of you, was there a moment, either a script or a moment in your life where your voice became clear to you as you were writing? You were like, here, that's me. And what was it?
It was probably writing Dead Like Me on spec, because I was at Star Trek Voyager with Phyllis at that time, and we were in somebody else's show trying to find our own voices at the same time. And as a result, I thought, like, okay, I just need to watch a show or need to write a show that I would really want to watch that's specifically designed for me. And just processed all the things that inspired me and kind of pooped it out. But that was when I was like, I guess this is my voice, as opposed to trying to write in somebody else's voice, which we're more normally at in a staffing situation. Like, the whole part of getting a writing staff position is being able to write in somebody else's voice, so it doesn't teach you how to write for yourself. And I think for Michael and I, when we're looking at writing samples, we want to look at somebody's original pilot that tells us what their voice is organically, what they would do if they weren't trying to impress anybody but themselves. That way we know how they are going to fit into the group, as opposed to them wanting to project a certain image of who they are to fit into the group. We want them to be authentic to who they are and what they like to write.
Bryan dresses like this every day. So every day is another piece of pie. Specs used to be like, write a sample of a show to show you can mimic, and we can mimic ourselves just fine. So it's always about, what can you bring? Because sometimes you read something or you meet someone, you're like, I fucking need that in the room. I want that vibe, that idea, that voice, because it makes the show bigger than we knew it was until we read that. And that's what we try to do in our writing, or writing together or writing separately. It's just, how do you be so indelibly yourself that no one else could have done this? It might make you infuriating to be around when you're doing that, but you do have to go to that place. It was, at every point, a writer who's been on staff has to take some time to write what they would write if they weren't being paid to write something else, and find out who you are, because it might not be what you thought it was. Young writers, for some reason, every young writer thinks they're a comedy writer. I don't know why, it's like everyone thinks they're a med student first year and like, oh my God, chemistry sucks. You don't have to be that. I don't know why everyone thinks they have to. And then at some point, you start to find out what kind of writer you actually are. You might not sing in the voice, you might like rock and roll, but you're a crooner, or the other way around. If you're a classical pianist, play classical piano. Find your voice, but it takes giving yourself that space, and that might mean not taking a staffing job, or walking away from one, or not showing up that Tuesday.
Next question. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Hi, thank you. I'm such a fan of all of the body of work that all four of you have done. But if my 2-year-old son knew,
Four? Me too.
yeah,
All
I
four.
love you, Michelle.
All
Community.
four.
So nice.
I love you on Community.
Aw, thank you.
But if my 2-year-old son knew I was talking to Tai Lung right now, he would flip his lid from Kung Fu Panda. My question is about adaptation. What is it that you wanted to bring from the book and to make it unique? And what is it that you wanted to bring to the show?
Probably an experience. I mean, when you read the book, you have an experience of reading the book. And we had ours, and we talked about what our separate experiences of reading the book were. Television can do that. It's a delivery system for a lot of different things. It can tell a story, it can tell a mystery, it can wrap up, it can create curiosity, but we had the chance with this to tell a version of the experience you get of reading the book, which is wondrous, it's one of the things I love about all of Neil's work, and why I'm always excited when he writes one of his 7 trillion books. Every time he's gonna crack a window open on a world that I want to live in more than the one we're in. And so coming at a pilot like this, we get to nudge the window. And that's an experience, because there's an excitement about letting in that light and getting to stick your head out.
That's nice. Oh, back there in the back. Yes.
Hi. I think for Bryan. So, what character from one of your previous shows would enjoy most being in the world of American Gods?
Well, it feels like a character from Pushing Daisies and a character from Dead Like Me is in the show. And one of the first things Michael and I, when we started talking about who Laura Moon was going to be, because in the book we only get one interpretation of her. We don't get a lot of backstory beyond that she was cheating on her husband and then died. So Michael said, like, oh, look, you're writing another dead girl. And so I probably Laura, I think George and Chuck would be right at home. And there are things that actually I wanted to do with Chuck in Pushing Daisies that ABC was like, I don't think we want the audience thinking of this woman with formaldehyde coming out of every orifice. So we saved that gag and used it in American Gods a few times.
Other question? Come on, guys. They're right here. I see you. Oh, I'll get you next. I'll get you next. Bryan would jump the gun. I'll get you next.
This is
You are. Bryan's producing.
this is just a random because I'm sure the majority of us consider all of you successful. But when you guys think of a successful person, who's the first person to come to mind?
You haven't said anything of a what? Who's a successful person to you?
Barack Obama.
I was just going to say that. God damn it.
Thank
Yes.
God.
Yes.
I second that.
I'm not going to beat that one.
That's kind of that's a mic drop moment. I agree. Yes, back there.
Will Neil Gaiman be writing an episode for the series?
We're hoping in season 2. He was going to in season 1 and then had a baby. And then he had to rewrite the baby. He got notes.
Who's next? Yes, in the back. You're so excited. I'm going to get you next, miss.
Hey there, guys.
Hi.
Quick question. How do the three of you in your respective professions combat that self-doubt or inner critic approaching either a writing project or a role?
Inner critic.
Oh, I think the best experience, I think Michael and I, when we did Kings, a much undervalued show, I thought. But that's what happens when a network wants a cable show. They can't fucking do it. You know, they don't know what they want. And the fact is that they, halfway through, I think that all the production heads had gone, and then all the creators had gone. And Michael said, what? I said, well, they let us finish the show. And they did. They actually let us do 13 episodes. Yep. But they hadn't got a clue. And I'll never forget coming back never coming back in the car the last day of shooting, and a phone rang. I got in the car, and it was the woman who'd been brought back to run NBC after being exiled to Europe a few years earlier, because you know when NBC sends you to Europe, you're fucking exiled, man.
This story's about...
And I said, she was running that network. I said, well, she'll be gone within 6 months. So, I mean, that's sort of like a perverse kind of pleasure you get about doing a good show and hearing the schadenfreude of executives. So I'll leave it at that. But you know, live another day when you come back. And when you work with, you know, these people, again, not I shouldn't say these people. I mean, like STARZ. I worked with Chris at HBO and Carmi, and then you've got Craig Sigelski and Stephanie from our friends who I've worked with before, actually, when I did Lovejoy at Fremantle Media, which is and it's their first venture into really heavily scripted material. I mean, they've done one or two things before in Europe, I think The Young Pope, but this is their big-time entry, and they've been amazing with it. I think you know, the way it's been nurtured over the last 8 months, and sort of, because it's a very special kind of show. I mean, we all think we're special. We all think our shows are special, but this one does push the envelope a little bit more than most of the others I've seen. So I've no hesitation in saying I'm a fan of it. And when STARZ going to announce that they're going to do season 2?
When are they? When? When? Well,
Who knows?
This is a good question, so I
Just-
want
just to
get it.
answer that,
Yeah, inner critic. Yeah.
It never goes away. The inner critic is always there. It never goes away. You just have to be louder inside your head with love than with the self-hate. Like it's because it's always there. There's always a better idea that you're chasing. There's
You gotta love what you do, Brian.
Yes.
Too. I mean, love is in really when you be writing. You've got to, I mean, okay, you sweat more than actors do because we're supposed to turn up, know the lines, and just be fucking marvelous, which you try to, but it's a creative thing. It's gone on, so you got to go out there hoping the other person will be as good, terrific, and in love with what you're doing that day as everybody else, and the technicians who are with you, because there's nothing better than, as I said, I'm back to socialism again. I'm back to that camaraderie, which only comes from working with cameraman and everybody doing their bit. And getting it out there, like we're doing now, the hype included.
Yeah. Inner critic?
You have to turn that voice into one that makes you work harder and not makes you stop working. Because it's not shutting up. You just have to.
This is not about me, but I just want to add my own 2 cents to this. No one knows. None of us know. So if no one knows, then you don't know either. So you saying that you're not good enough, you don't know. You know what I mean? So that takes some of the pressure off of it, because if we all knew the way to be successful, we all knew the right way to get into the industry or the right way we'd all be successful in the industry. No one knows. So why not take your shot and believe in yourself and bet on yourself, since no one knows, right? So it kind of evens the playing field. If you can hear someone like Bryan Fuller say that he still has self-doubts, then you're equal. You're on the same playing field with him. So you're in the right place and you're going in the right direction, and, just keep moving.
Just keep swimming.
Yeah. So, oh, no, I promised you something. You will receive it. It's your turn.
Thank you. So you mentioned that all of the writers on the show had to have complicated relationships with religion. I'm wondering if you could talk about how your ideas have changed or grown, or since you took the project, or maybe the book inspired a change in your ideas. Just talk more about your relationship with religion.
You mean in terms of religion? Like I just with I think I was on the way to being pretty tolerant, as it were. I was raised Catholic, and then I went through my anti-Catholic phase, and then I went through my there's some bad things in Catholicism that we're working through, but everybody who is Catholic actually gets something out of that faith that gives them guidance, that gives them light, that gives them direction in their lives. And so for us in working on the show, I think it reached an extent where when we're looking at these relatively forgotten gods and thinking that religion is just as valid as the ones that are remembered, because they come from the same spirit and the same source of what is the thing that you put your energy into that you can actually see your energy in at the same time. And so I think it would just be solidifying religious tolerance.
I was brought up in an Orthodox Jewish setting and educated in that. My family was conservative, but it was very, very steeped in it. And I always went in with the attitude of, I'm Jew enough for any writing staff. You don't need another. And I've hired accordingly. And but with this show, that came with a certain know-it-all attitude. And I went and got the religious studies degree. And it's like I always felt like, hey, religion, that's my thing. That's my Jeopardy question. And on this show, just given the level of erudition of the source material, given how combustive it might be, handled correctly or incorrectly, even worse, I just made the choice to forego expertise. And in talking to anyone about what they knew, I wanted to learn from them, even if it was something I thought I knew, because the truth is, college is a long time ago, and information is better, and I've forgotten fucking everything. So I just tried to readdress it, and I knew we were going to be hitting religions. First season, we don't hit every continent. We have a long way to go. But we were going to be hitting minor deities, major deities, and just don't assume you know as much as someone once told you did when they were being nice.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Thanks for coming out so much. This might be more for Michael, but Bryan, I'd love to hear your take on this too. In these days, you know, there's so many people that came from film background, but they're doing TV. And I know, Bryan, you've done more TV, but Michael, you've done both. There's a lot of writers here that, you know, they probably have mostly TV ideas, but they have a couple feature ideas that are in the back of their brain. And maybe those feature ideas could be better, or maybe the other way around. Maybe a feature idea, but a TV idea that's much, much better. Do you think it's better to brand yourself as more of a feature writer or a TV writer today versus, you know?
I hear the word brand and combust into flame. I don't understand. I don't know. There isn't one or the other anymore. It's very fluid. I had the advantage of having all my shows canceled in first season, so that just gave me time to do things while... Please don't laugh. It's terrible. I worked very hard on those shows. No, while in the meantime, Bryan got to go to season 2, season 3. He got to go through those wonderful episodes of Hannibal, which I watched as his friend and as his fan with my jaw on the fucking floor as he was filmmaking on television, as good or better as any art film or theater film you'd see. And we were kind of parallel processing and staying in touch about it, but when I'd always wanted to stay in television because that's where you get really good at doing something. And I watched what was happening in Hannibal, and every time we would catch up, whenever he would have time in between that very rigorous schedule, most of my questions were, how the fuck did you do that? I wanted to learn how to do that, and that goes back to just approaching, you know, each show, and this one especially, with I'm going to learn on this one, and learning from Bryan, with Bryan, from Bryan, how he made that and how he was going to advance it on this scale. So don't think one or the other. Think what you're most passionate about and what you really want to be doing, and do that, and then the project will dictate how many pages it is.
Can I add to that? There seems a lot of snobism going on there, which is like actors who suddenly say, you know, no, I've never done television, because somehow it's like screenwriters who've never written a TV. There seems to be a lot of that, especially in this town, which sort of cross-pollinates. If you've only ever done features, or some actors hang on to doing features. I mean, fuck me, most of them should have stopped doing features, stopped acting altogether, actually, a long time ago. But, you know, it's like, I've only done features. And there's that's sort of not in an English actor's vocabulary. Or, I mean, maybe that, or in a writer. I mean, how do you know if you're a feature writer? How do you know if you're a television? I mean, that guy like Noel Hawley, who suddenly came from nowhere and suddenly reinvented Fargo. There were so many talented, long-form storytellers. It's like the difference between reading the New York Times and the Atlantic magazine. If you want in-depth, you'll read that. So if you want to go and see a feature film, you'll read the New York Times. You want to go in-depth, you'll go to the Atlantic magazine, which is television. There's far more creative stuff going on TV than there is in films, sadly, but that's the nature of the business.
It's blending in that.
And if I love you, but if I see one more, angst-ridden superhero, I'll go crazy.
I have a few movies for you to not see.
Love you dearly.
No, and television features, why the distinction? It's always frustrating when you hear people on TV say, it looked like a movie, that shot. It's not. It's a TV show. Make a great TV show.
Cinema.
It's the experience of watching something, and how many minutes. Now you have cable shows where you can have an episode that goes 72 minutes. That's as long as Zelig. Like, why is that an episode? So don't be so binary.
Well, there is the issue of television being more of a writer's medium, which is also shifting now that we're in a different environment in terms of high-end cable series or streaming services series. There are certainly experiences that Michael and I have both had in television where we can solve the problem, and we have the ability to solve the problem. And when you're working in a feature, there's a reason that there is a stereotype of how writers are treated in features, because you're generally there to provide a page and then not be heard from. Whereas what Michael and I get to do on American Gods is we're piloting the plane. We take off. We have the passengers on board. We may jettison a few while we're in the air, and we land the plane regardless of screaming or not, but we get the wheels on the ground. And so it really is about having the wherewithal to drive the production creatively, visually, and as writers. So I think the big difference between movies and television for a writer is that we are in a much better position to control the outcome of the project as writers in television.
We have about 2 minutes left. Who's got a burning question? Like if they leave here and don't get to ask it, they're going to be very upset. You just gotta, it's in their spirit. There you go. There she is.
Hi, I was wondering, when you guys move through the progression of your work and pick what's going to be next, what's it that excites you, and what do you find that are the different through lines that you're constantly going back to? Sorry, my voice is dying.
I like your voice.
You mean in terms of where we would go in a potential season 2 and what excited us, or?
In a season, oh no, you're fine. In a season 2, but ultimately in picking the next project, if it's something completely different, like what are those things that you're constantly drawn to and gets you really excited about it, like visually or in the story, what in the character, what flaws, like what are those things that kind of perpetually drive your creative writing spirit forward?
I think it's based on whatever the inspiration of the project may be. Hannibal was a different inspiration than American Gods, and really we want to tell new ideas and explore new ideas with every new project. We don't want to go back and do exactly the same thing again, but I think the fuel is it's reactionary. If you're adapting something, you're looking at it and then being spirited and inspired, and then going off and trying to make it into cinema. If it's an original exploration, then it is so hard to quantify the inspiration source because it comes from a variety of places, and it can be an image, it can be a line of dialogue where like I can build a whole story around that quote. So it comes from a variety of different places, and we probably shouldn't talk about our next projects in front of the studio.
You guys, this has been a joy for me. I'm so happy I got to sit here with you guys. I want to remind you one more time that American Gods premieres on STARZ April 30th at 9 p.m. Please, please watch. And they're at American Gods STZ on Twitter, so if you want to tweet about it. Thank you so much for coming out, you guys.
Thank you for
Thanks,
coming,
guys.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Yvette.
Have a good weekend.